Hello and welcome to the more or less inaugural class to our Daniel series that we have been promising for a long time. And everyone give a big round of applause. We've delivered. That's all I have to say about that. Have a nice night. Just joking. All right, now, I don't see anybody clapping. Why aren't you guys clapping? To give everybody up to speed of what's going on, I don't even see any ones or twos. We have, let me give you the story of how we came to do this class. Your good friend and mine, the Ger Hagadol, Russell, and I learn Kol HaTorah every Sunday, type 1. And Kol HaTorah deals with prophecies, Nevuah, Tanach. I don't see any ones. Hello. And part of the redemption is about what's the fifth exile, which is called Galus Yishmael, the Ishmaelite exile, which not many people know about. And I saw in passing, almost by accident, that in Daniel, with a commentary of Saadiah Gaon, I didn't even know what that meant at the time, speaks about Ishmael and the Ishmaelite exile. And as you all know, Daniel talks about the exile, correct? So I said to Russell, we should get a new class going through Daniel with Saadiah Gaon, looking for Ishmael. And at that time, we announced the class, and I wanted everyone to know the commentary in English, to follow along, and we found an English version of Saadiah Gaon. And then I looked at it, and I had no idea what I was looking at. So then we bought another Hebrew version, and I looked at it, and I really had no idea what was going on. Then we got the art scroll for the English regular, and I see that they printed the Hebrew Saadiah Gaon, and I already had a regular Hebrew version Saadiah Gaon. And then we had the holidays, we had trips to Africa. I think we actually started this with a trip to America. Sonia, I think, did we start the Daniel Project at that time? I can't remember which trip it was. Because I remember it goes way back. Anyhow, it's been a busy season. Or maybe it was Hanukkah. I think maybe it was Hanukkah that we stopped. I don't remember. It's been so long. So, Bekitzer, the problem that we ran into was that the Mikros Gedolos version of Saadiah Gaon was radically different than the version that I had found separate of Saadiah Gaon, which is the English, which was translated from, we'll call it the Kapach, because Saadiah Gaon wrote the commentary in Arabic, and then it got put in through Hebrew. Bottom line is, we'll call it the Kapach, all right? Kapach is like the translation from the Arabic, and then there's the Mikros Gedolos version. All right, so know your terminology. Mikros Gedolos, when I say that, we're talking about Saadiah Gaon version in the Mikros Gedolos, and we'll call it the Kapach, which is the translation of Arabic to Hebrew. The two versions are different. Now, on the surface, they're completely different. And I mean completely different as Chinese and Spanish, okay? Totally different. And so as much as it's not that hard to prepare the Hebrew in the Mikros Gedolos, we could have done that months ago. I was on this path of understanding the Kapach. And no one that I asked knows anything about it. It just was a nightmare. And so I had to keep ordering books to keep getting better at it. And it got more confusing. And I was trying to prepare class like an hour before class, and it was never enough. And it was like, man, it was hard. So today I started at 6 o'clock. And last week, I think Dixie can tell you, I put in a good solid 4 hours or so. And these last 2 weeks, I think I really knocked it out. So the bottom line is that the kapach is more authentic, it turns out. And there is part of it that's like, you have like the Dead Sea Scrolls, that it's like cut up and missing, and you know, a corner's missing and a letter's blurred. So the original commentary is like Dead Sea Scrolls almost, right? It's archaeological findings and then translated. And the Mikras Gedolos is something else. So tonight, what I planned is to go through the kapach, which I did, and I have it all laid out here. And then when I was done with kapach, I went into the Mikras Gedolos version, and it's the same agenda. Does that make sense to you? It's the same idea. One or two. Hello? It's the same concepts. It's much more wordy in the Mikras Gedolos, much more refined. So what my theory until now, and it may change, but my theory is the Mikras Gedolos version, the rabbis have been working on it for probably over 1,000 years. And so it's become refined and manufactured. And where there's holes in it, because they don't have the whole commentary, I think they took Saadiah Gaon teachings from other sources and brought them in to make a super commentary. Can I get a 1 or a 2? Now, what if that's not the real story? It's at least the story Lafi Pshuto. I'm looking at it. I'm seeing the difference. And unless there's just a better explanation, which I don't think there is, I think this is the explanation, then this is the way it is. So my agenda will be to read the Hebrew verse, see what it is in the English for you guys, go to kapach, do the kapach, compare it to the Mikras Gedolos. Where there's no kapach, we go strictly to the Mikras Gedolos. And we have the English kapach for you guys. Lars, I think you got a copy of it. I do recommend, again, buying that English version. Now that I know what it is, it'll be a very good English translation of the kapach. It's not exactly the same as the kapach. They both have a different version. But I think he is true to the text. The footnotes I find to be garbage. Maybe even written by a Karaite. But the translation, there's no funny business to it. It's a straight translation of the kapach. I have not found a translation of Saadiah Gaon in the Mikras Gedolos. But yet, the Mikras Gedolos is not that hard to translate in terms of me teaching it. Like I said, it's a manufactured commentary, meaning they've had over 1,000 years to make it legible. Kapach is like dug out of a Qumran cave. Okay, so it's very, very rustic. On Amazon, Lars, if you could provide everybody that wants to know the link for the call it the gray book. Was that what color it is? Is it gray? Yeah, it is about gray. Right. All right, let's go. This is exciting. We're finally going to start. You ready? Justin B., you want to go ahead and pull up verse 1:1 of Daniel, if you'd be so kind. And I'll go ahead and read the Hebrew. Bishnas Shalosh Lamalchis Yehoyakim Melech Yehuda Ba Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel Yerushalayim V'Yatzar Aleha. In the 3rd year of the reign of Yehoyakim, king of Yehuda, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylonia, came to Jerusalem and laid siege to it. Okay? Now, we started the program looking for Gullus Yishmael. Then when we got into the different girses, different versions of text, we got confused. And now that we're not confused, we at least know what we're looking at, right, in the kapach, in the Mikras Gedolos. And we started with chapter 1, verse 1. And we know that the great prophetic insight of Daniel really gets heavy in chapters 11 and 12, type 1. So on one hand, we can skip and go to 11 and 12, but we will suffer being out of context. If we start with 1:1, it'll probably take us 13 years to get to 11 and 12, which means we're defeating the purpose of the prophetic insight. And that leads you to believe or to realize that you were never going to get Daniel anyways. Did you ever meet anybody that really got Daniel? If they got Daniel, think about it, you would know the date of the arrival of the Mashiach. So nobody really can claim to be a master expert in Daniel. It's the one book that Targum Yonason didn't give his translation, which is a commentary. The Talmud says because he didn't want to reveal the date of the coming of the Mashiach. And Daniel's job was to conceal the date of the Mashiach. So we have two options. We can translate and guess, which I'm against, and go directly to 11 and 12, or we can learn Daniel for what it is and maybe never get into the prophecies themselves. Rather than making it a democracy, I've chosen for you, and we're going to at least start at the beginning, as we are now, and we're going to learn the tools for learning Daniel. Does that sound good to you? We're going to learn, what is Daniel? We thought we were going to learn Daniel. It turns out we're not learning Daniel. We're learning what is Daniel. How does Daniel work? What are the tools involved with Daniel? A philosophy of love the book of Daniel. Type 1 or 2. Loving the book of Daniel is what this class is going to be. All right? Again, this series in class will be Love the Book, Daniel. Loving the book of Daniel. You guys want to love the book of Daniel? And from what I see, Saadiah Gaon is a big player in loving the book of Daniel. So again, who do we have in the art scroll, which I do recommend you guys buying that too, because in this case, they do a very good job of laying it out. This art scroll is different than your Humash because it's laid out Mikras Gedolos style, which I did not know when I bought it. It was a pleasant surprise. So the art scroll brings Mitsudas Tzion, Mitsudas David, Saadiah Gaon, and Rashi. And a standard Mikras Gedolos, like I have in my other hand here, just for context, would have Rashi, Mitsudas David, Saadiah Gaon, Malbim, Even Ezra. So we're missing the Even Ezra. And it's a long Even Ezra, and probably very quality as well. But we want to do the Saadiah Gaon. Because, and remember, we don't want necessarily pshat. We want insight to Ishmael exile eventually. So whether we do that now or when we become proficient at learning this, then we can further look into the Ishmaelite exile. But we're not ready for that. We got to build up some muscles and some stamina and endurance. Type 1. Okay, so we read the Hebrew and we translated into the English. And then we gave a little bit of explanation. How many of you think that the English I read to you, and this is a trick question. It's not the way you would expect you to answer. How many of you think the English encapsulated the Hebrew. And don't say, Jacques, oh, well, the English never captures the Hebrew. There's another reason why. Does anybody know why? Does anybody know why? Because as I'm learning Saadiah Gaon in the commentaries, the book of Daniel is largely written in Aramaic and in a grammar that is different from most books of the Tanakh. And so what I'm finding Saadiah Gaon's commentary to be is that the translation itself is subject to commentary. You understand what I mean? Meaning there is no straight translation. The translation is affected by commentary, much like Song of Songs. Have you guys ever read Song of Songs, the Art Scroll? In the English, how does Art Scroll say they're doing it? They tell you openly. We're translating. Here, I'll read it for you inside, since you don't believe me. Right? Type 1 if you don't believe me. I know you don't. No one does. Nothing new. All right, when you look at Song of Songs and Art Scroll, they tell you, the top of the page, allegorical rendering following Rashi. They don't even attempt to translate it because you can't. So what they do is they go with Rashi's commentary and they translate it as Rashi explains. You understand that? That means it is not the translation. And they add words on purpose. And they admit it. So with Daniel, the words may seem easily translatable, but the exact nuance is based on interpretation. And does interpretation mean guess? Are they just interpreting as they guess? No. What we're finding out is the following. Hold that thought, okay? Hold the thought. Are they translating it from guessing? Now, my theory and my philosophy will evolve and change. But after having read one pasuk, again, I don't claim to be an expert in Daniel yet, or maybe ever, but I am a novice in reading the first pasuk. And what we're seeing is through Saadiah Gaon's commentary. Remember, we're explaining this Lefi Pshuto. How is it Lefi Pshuto, Jacques? Because maybe Rashi would translate it literally. And Saadiah Gaon is only the one who has a problem translating it. So he has to interpret, and the interpretation affects his translation, which means the reality of the text follows an interpretation. What is that called, everybody? Lefi Pshuto. Lefi Pshuto. I'm going to interpret based on a linguistic nuance. Now, it seems like everybody's on board, but let's just pretend that Rashi says, no, not a problem, very simple. Okay, so Rashi would be going one way, and Saadiah Gaon's another way. So we're always explaining Daniel through the lens of Saadiah Gaon. I am not interested or have the time to learn the entire book through the 5 or so 6 commentaries through the Mikras Gedolos. I wish I had that time. I really do. And even if you wanted to learn it, let's say to find the date of the coming of the Messiah, the Rambam himself says we are not to be heavily invested in the arrival date of the Mashiach. With that said, what we find, how many of you have ever heard of the Tanakh? Has anybody ever heard of the Tanakh? Okay, you've heard of the Tanakh. How many of you are aware that the Tanakh is comprised of prophecies? Did you know this? The Tanakh is a book of collected prophecies. 1 or 2. Did you guys know that? You didn't know that. Lars didn't know. So inside, let's say after the conclusion of Devarim, it's going to go to Yehoshua and Shoftim and Shmuel. And let's stop right there, okay? Then let's pick it up with Kings. And after Kings, let's go meet our friends Isaiah. You want to do that? And our friend Jeremiah. And our friend Ezekiel. And let's stop right there. Then you have the 12 minor prophets, which we're not going to bother with them right now. And obviously the writings don't interest us because those are not in a timeline. But then we can also talk a little bit about Chronicles because it refers to our timeline. Does anybody know or can you recognize the timeline that I am referring to? Can anybody recognize the timeline that I am referring to? One or two. Hello? Hello? The timeline is from Kings, right? David, Solomon, and then from then on we have Kings. And this is all in the time of the first temple. We can call it the first temple time period. How many of you were aware that there was a temple built by Solomon? Everyone was aware of that? How many of you are aware that Solomon's temple was destroyed? How many of you are aware of that? How many of you are aware that the people in Jerusalem and Israel then got taken to Babylon? How many of you were aware of that? And at some point in Babylon, a fellow named Daniel wrote down a whole bunch of stuff. And then eventually a whole bunch of people were brought back to the land and they rebuilt a second temple. How many of you were aware of that? How many of you are aware of the fact that the Temple Institute and Chaim Richmond are still wanting to build the second temple and reject the third temple? Now, that had nothing to do with this, but I just thought I'd throw that in. It is true. They want to build the second temple. They have no interest in Ezekiel's temple. They actually want to build Herod's temple. But that was just a side note. Now, let's go back to Babylon, and you have your friend Daniel, and he's writing a book. How many of you were aware that your friend Daniel wrote a book? How many of you were aware? And Daniel was not a prophet, says the history of Tanakh. Now, let's go and zoom in a little deeper. How many of you would assume that the first temple had, let's call it a beginning with Solomon, a middle, and an end? Does that seem logical to you? And at the end is when it ultimately gets destroyed. And how many of you are aware that its destroyer was Nebuchadnezzar? Or whether or not, well, he didn't destroy it. What did he do? How's it go? And he came in. How's it go? Who actually destroyed it? Nebuchadnezzar. Hold on. Pardon me on my Tanakh history. I'm pretty sure. How did it go? Ross, you know? Solomon's temple. Let's get the exact history here. Yeah, so let's see. What did Nebuchadnezzar? Here we go. We're going to look at Wikipedia. So, ancient before, right, Nebuchadnezzar II. Yeah, he destroyed it. What was his name? Was his name Nebuchadnezzar II? Let's see here. Hold on a second. The temple was plundered by Nebuchadnezzar II. Wait, I thought somebody else took it out. Wait, then who was the guy that came and roughed it up before? There's two guys. There's two different guys. There was a guy who came and roughed it up, and a guy who came and destroyed it. Hold on a second. I wasn't even thinking about this when I prepared. Hold on. Forget the name. Who was the guy? Ross? Who was the guy who came and did a bunch of balagan? Let's see here. Who was the first invader? You guys know? This has nothing to do with the class. This is just background knowledge. Yeah, guys, look that up. We need to get this right. We don't want to be on the wrong foot here. I cannot remember the two names of the guys. One guy came first, and then another guy came. Let's see here. Hold on a second. There we go. Solomon's Temple. Wait a second. Yeah, I guess it was Nebuchadnezzar. What was the name then of the guy who invaded Jerusalem? The first guy to invade from Babylon. Does anyone know his name? Let's see here. Yeah, that's what I thought. No, that's it. That's what I thought. But who was the guy who invaded? That's what I was confused about. Hang on. Oh, Sancherib. There it is. Okay. Man. Okay. Got it. I knew there was two guys. All right. Right. Hold on. Let's look up Sancherib. It's Sancherib. Let's see the difference between Nebuchadnezzar and Sancherib. All right. Sancherib, king of Assyria. Okay. Here we go. The Babylonian problem. Right, he was the beginning of the Babylonian problem. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to figure out when he was in Tanakh. Who was the king? With Chizkiyahu. That's right. All right, here we go. That's it. Sennacherib then turned on Jerusalem, Chizkiyahu's capital. He besieged the city. He never breached the city. Okay. The Bible states an angel of the Lord killed a bunch of Assyrians. Let's see where that is. Kings 2, 1935. All right? Got it. So then Nebuchadnezzar is going to come and destroy it. Okay, we're good. So now, at the end of the temple, you're going to have Sennacherib, and you're going to have Nebuchadnezzar, and you're going to have Chizkiyahu, who the Talmud says God wanted to make him the Mashiach. And then you're going to have the time of the kings until eventually you're going to meet your friend, Yehoiakim. Now, Ross Bearden, are you listening to me? Ross Bearden, I want from you a detailed report all about Yehoiakim. And I'll tell you why. Type 1, Ross. This is Ross's job. Because Yehoiakim is the guy who we're talking about in the first verse here. Remember, in the third year of the reign of Yehoiakim, king of Yehuda, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylonia, came to Jerusalem and laid siege to it. The Lord delivered Yehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the vessels of the temple of God. Now you have two guys here. You have Yehoiakim and you have Nebuchadnezzar. Type 1. Hurry up. Hurry up. Then we have the concept of Daniel is it's all about dates and times. Ultimately, the time of the Mashiach. Type 1. Type 1. And so the book of Daniel is going to refer to the characters at the end of the first temple. Yehoiakim, Nebuchadnezzar, and the times involved. And we are told that if we understood Daniel, we would understand the coming of the Mashiach. 1 or 2. So now when we read Daniel, you think that you understand it, but you don't. For example, when it says in the 3rd year of the reign of Yehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and laid siege to it. Did you guys understand that just now? Did you understand it? How about 0? Because when you read in the English, in the 3rd year, what is that in Hebrew, Ross? Bishnat Shalosh. It didn't say Bishanat Shlishi. It said Bishnat Shalosh. So Saadiah Gaon's commentary says that makes no sense. The numbers are off. Now, how many of you are familiar with Yehoiakim to even know what Daniel's talking about? How many of you are familiar with Yehoiakim to know who Daniel's talking about? None of you. So how are we supposed to learn Daniel when you can't even read basic Hebrew, including someone who's a Hebrew scholar, without the commentary? You're not an expert on Yehoiakim, and you're really not too sure of Nebuchadnezzar and what he represents. And Daniel is telling you all about what happened as if you already know what's going on. And all of this is to give you a greater appreciation of Daniel. How many of you know that the Tanach is written with prophecies? Didn't we just ask that 5-10 minutes ago? Daniel is not a prophet. Daniel is a master of the prophecies. Now, does that not open up a lot of things in your mind? Daniel is the first scholar of the late First Temple prophecies. Daniel knows who Yehoiakim was. Daniel knows who Nebuchadnezzar was. Daniel knows the timelines involved. God told Daniel through inspiration to conceal the language. And the language is already concealed in the prophecies. Daniel made heads and he looked it up exactly. Daniel was a scholar. The time of prophecy ended. So he was learning the prophets. That's what they did. This was before Judaism proper. It was before the concept of a rabbi. So when Daniel writes in the book, Bishnat Shalosh, the Malchis, da-da-da-da-dee, he understands the characters. So if you are going to read Daniel and learn Daniel, don't you have to know the prophecies themselves, the characters themselves, and the Iker terms concerning the times themselves. And so what does Saadiah Gaon do? He's introducing you to the prophecies by sourcing the prophecies. Right? Saadiah Gaon's commentary is to source where Daniel is drawing his inspiration from. So, for example, in the first verse, to make sense out of the timeline that Yehoiakim ruled for 11 years, and he even mentions Sfei Dinim. He doesn't say the word Sfei Dinim. He says, Yesh lichkur. Yesh lichkur. There is to investigate, to which he says there's two answers. And those that say brisk is new, it's not new. So he explains how it works. And he sources from Chronicles 2:36-6, Jeremiah 52:11, Jeremiah 22:19, and Jeremiah 36:30. Ross, write those down. Jeremiah 22:19, Jeremiah 36:30, Jeremiah 52:11, Chronicles 2:36-6, and then another one, Malachim, Kings 2:24-12. This is all in the recording. So now there's another major issue. Who was the main prophet at this time at the end of the first temple? Does anybody know? Does anybody know? The answer is Jeremiah. So imagine what's going on now. Daniel is as zoomed in as possible. He is literally so tuned in, he is looking through his mazel at the end of the first temple. And because Jeremiah was there, and Jeremiah was receiving the command from God to write down everything going on and to encapsulate prophecy. And they were doing prophecy, including burying Yehoiakim's head. Right? Jeremiah was living prophecy. At that time, God was instructing them to behave prophetically. And then it became stored in Jeremiah. Daniel then reads the prophecies in Babylon, waiting for the redemption at that time. And he understands the prophecies. So by definition, he is going to basically restore a prophetic timeline. Jeremiah was in the hand of God, doing prophetic action that has a timeline even going beyond the destruction of the first temple. So the end of the first temple was one huge pool of prophetic prowess. And then God ended the act, destroying the temple, sending them to Babylon. Daniel becomes the scholar, writes his book of Daniel, and we go to build the second temple. Prophecy's gone. The rabbinic era is coming in. We're preparing for exile and redemption. That temple will be destroyed. Exile and 2,000 years of Mashiach begins. And now the Jews have been brought back to their land. The world religions are crumbling. And we're awaiting the messianic revelation. All but a couple of moments in the eyes of God. So again, what Saadiah Gaon is doing to understand Daniel, Yehoiakim, Nebuchadnezzar, and Yirmiyahu, Rav Saadiah is looking to Jeremiah's prophecies. And he's able to gain the prophetic insight of the timeline and the characters involved. All right, so that's pretty much all I have to say today. What do you guys think about this style? I think it works. So what we do is we're going to read the Hebrew, butcher the English, go to Kapach and get the gist, and then compare Kapach with Mikros Gedolos and fill in the blanks with Mikros Gedolos. But at the very least, I'm telling you for a fact, in my preparation, you cannot, in sourcing, you can never just go right to the pasuk because it's out of context, especially with Jeremiah. You have to get a running flow of what God is commanding. All of Tanakh is a command, right? So you got to get into the commandment. So when you find out what Jeremiah is saying about Yehoiakim, you need to know who Yehoiakim is. I know, Ross, you and I, our mission is to know Yehoiakim because Daniel starts his book off with him. The prophecy starts with him. And from learning Daniel the right way, you will learn the Iker terms of basically understanding prophecy and the prophetic characters and the prophetic timelines. And those are the ingredients to understand Mashiach. Now, Daniel was the master. And I'm guessing Saadiah Gaon wasn't too bad. And what we're trying to do is gain insight into unlock the book of Daniel. And the unlocking begins by understanding and realizing we know nothing. And I mean it. If you don't know who Yehoiakim is, you're not going to get it. You won't even understand the first kasha asking about the timeline of Yehoiakim. Right? Most people don't go about their lives wondering whatever happened to Yehoiakim. Daniel did. That's the difference. Right? Like Lars said, Daniel looked it up. All right? That's all for today. We're not going to do Vilna Gaon because we did a very long intro here, even though I did prepare it for the second time. Next week, we should be able to jump right into Daniel. I don't intend on giving any more introductions on Daniel. We have succeeded in teaching the first verse of Daniel according to the commentaries. I'm not going to read word for word all the commentaries. It'll take forever. My job is to crunch it and give it over as concisely as I can to an edible class. And so next week, we will jump into 1-2. Sometimes we will not have the kapach, and then I'll just go right to Mikros Gedolos. And if we have to skip a verse because the Mikros Gedolos also doesn't have anything, then we get to go that much faster. Okay, so that's how it's going to go. We'll be able to jump in quickly and then transition into nice bite-sized nuggets of Song of Songs. I don't intend on introducing Song of Songs. Then we've already done that a million times. And next week we should be able to go forth with both classes. Have a great Shabbos. It was a good week. GSS is on its way. Hope you guys enjoy the site. Get involved. There will be a Facebook login very soon. They're working on it. And landing pages for easy registration. It's going to get much smoother and easier for everybody. And we're a good couple weeks out of the trip to America, where a lot of you will be seeing on the tour. And Jacques just finished up his leg of the journey. I'm sure South Africa is rooting on the next tour. And we're just about ready to turn that corner into May. And then May is really countdown till the tour. All right, so have a great Shabbos. And I think we've concluded all of our introductions. And just again for the class schedule, I'm gonna make this class free on YouTube so everyone can get a good look at it. Monday nights is Parshas Noach in the Zohar, recorded, filmed. Tuesday night is gonna be Mazel and Koheles, Ecclesiastes. Wednesday night will be my new class of thinking about conversion, getting into the Ger Tzedek Sugya, always flavored with a little bit of Ger Toshav as well. And Thursday nights, obviously, Daniel and Song of Songs. And in the background, when we have time, I got to find time. We're going to finish the Weiss document. So if the next couple weeks, if we cancel the other classes, it'll be replaced with the Weiss doc so that we can finish that project and then move on swiftly to Ger Tzedek. All right? Yasher Koyach. Have a great Shabbos. Hope you had a great week. And may we have a strong week of learning next week. Good Shabbos.